I see there was someone waiting already. Welcome to my Wednesday chit chat stream. Gosh, it's hot today, but it's finally hot, and that's great. I was waiting for this all winter, and finally it's warm enough. Thank you for joining, whoever's watching. Oh, Hofka, I got one of my cats here, sitting under the table. Oh, there is Patrick. Patrick, hello. I'm on time today, and I'm all set with a Kentucky bourbon, a German beer, and lemonade made from freshly homemade elderflower syrup. Gosh, this sounds delicious. I have to admit, though, I haven't consumed any alcohol in a very long while, and I just don't feel any pull and any desire for alcohol, even for a beer. I want some kvass. Really, I need to order me some kvass online. That's the thing that I really miss. But I can relate to the coziness. Let's put it this way: I can relate to the coziness of your setup. That's pretty cool. And I'm very glad to see you because for a long while I didn't see you in my live streams at all, and I know that there's quite a bit of a time difference between Kentucky and Germany. How are you doing? How's it going? I'm sitting here I'm sitting in the garage with the door open, and it's just half an hour ago, it was 31 degrees centigrade, which translates to around 90 Fahrenheit, I guess, something around that. I have the temperature set on the weather app. I have it set in Fahrenheit on my phone and in centigrade on my laptop so that I can sort of correlate the two numbers. I'm working on a new painting, by the way, over there. It's kind of hard to see because of the lighting. But yeah, working on a new oil painting. And with my first book, I don't remember if I said this last week. The first book is written, but I had to go through some tedious work on it. Initially, when I was writing, I just had huge chapters, about 20,000 words plus. Some of these chapters were like, the largest one was around 50,000 words. And so then, I had all of that subdivided into little scenes, about 1 or 2 pages long. And still, it was kind of, something was wrong about this. And I had a couple of beta readers reach out to me, and they told me that it's quite difficult to absorb such a huge amount of text. So I broke it down into subchapters. I gave them like little subtitles, something like this. And I went through the whole first book and edited it this way. And apparently it helped. So it works a lot better. But then the other thing is that I quickly realized that I need to put together a glossary because a lot of the names and geographical names and little references, a name of a dish, of a food, or something like this that actually exists in the real world, borrowed from Middle Eastern cultures. English speakers wouldn't know how to read that because it's just some bizarre word, and if you don't know how to pronounce it, you just don't know, So I ended up getting to work on a glossary, and so the first book will have we'll have a glossary in the second one as well, because a lot of those things are recurring, and it gives the word itself as it appears in the text. Then there is a simple pronunciation. How do you read this? And then there's a brief description. That's all it is. But it takes some time to write the glossary, because now I'm parsing through the text, through the whole first book, and I'm picking out every single of those words that need a pronunciation guide, that need some sort of description, a simple short description, like Anamira, daughter of Corvash, for example. Corvash, father of Anamira. There is the pronunciation. Navira, name, mother of Anamira. This sort of very simple descriptions. There's nothing more to that, and most importantly, pronunciation. Work meant I unfortunately slept through the last ones, and I've been recording and mixing a few songs, but the image looks really cool. Thank you. Well, I get it. I got carried away too, and frankly, there were some weeks when I felt kind of so overwhelmed that I didn't really feel like I have the mental capacity to go live. Because just that's how it happens, sometimes, the best course of action, at least for me, and I heard someone was giving this advice to artists and saying that, if you're on a roll, keep going. And this was like a music coach, someone like that, who was talking about, like, music business guy. He was telling a lot of indie artists about, like, don't sit and wait for inspiration, but once you get into the groove, keep going. I think it works for a lot of people. I have a different problem. It's not difficult for me to actually get into the groove. The problem is that then I can't stop. And I don't notice time. And then all of a sudden I feel depleted, when all of a sudden everything stops and I can't think anymore. And I'm kind of, throughout the day and night, and mornings, I'm fluctuating between painting, writing, and music. And it kind of shifts all the time. On some days, I wake up and I feel like, well, I finally have the right ideas for the melody, for the track that I'm working on. And I get into that. I listen to the previous track, something like this, and I get into it, and then I can't stop. And then there is, it turns out, oh my God, this is Wednesday. I'm supposed to go here and sit down with you guys and have my Wednesday chit chat live stream. But I'm just not here. You know what I mean? And so there were days when I felt that the pull to go and do other stuff was far more powerful. Or I just didn't feel like it because I was too groggy, or I was too tired, or I was writing in the morning, early in the morning, which again, whenever I catch that wind, I just keep going, scene after scene after scene after scene, because my characters, it's not that I am putting words into my characters. I rather listen to my characters. I listen to, what are they telling me? What are they talking about in that given situation? Something happens to them, and then there's another scene, and they have to react. They have to do something about it. You know what I mean? And that's how the first book was written. And now the second book kind of writes itself. But in order for it to write itself, I have to be there present, actually writing the words. You know what I mean? A glossary always makes sense in fantasy novels and not just for Americans. Yeah, I believe so. But I think what makes it particularly challenging is that, I mean, for English speakers and for non-English speakers as well. I'm a Russian speaker originally, right? But I'm taking a lot of words or constructing words based on Persian language. on Farsi, um, on Turkish, on Kurdish, on Romanian, sometimes on Greek. With Greek, it's sort of probably a little easier. It's probably the simplest of all of these languages. But when it comes to Persian or Kurdish or Turkish, that's where it's really super confusing because you have these words which contain letters with all of this additional little, C with a hook here and there. You have the vowels which are accented one way or the other, whatever those accents are called. And the thing is that they're pronounced in different languages. These little hooks and accents, they serve a different purpose. In French, for example, the C with a little hook underneath, whatever it's called, I don't remember, is used to denounce the sound S. So, like in the word garçon, it's spelled G-A-R-C-D, as far as I remember in French. Then O and then N. So, garçon. But it's a different story in Turkish. You know what I mean? Like in Turkish, the letter C with that same sign sounds like a ch. And so the word will be pronounced according to the rules of Turkish language because the word was borrowed from the Turkish language. You know what I mean? Hence, I need to write out this glossary and give the exact pronunciation so that people wouldn't get lost and they wouldn't assume that, oh, this is probably a French word. No, it's not a French word. It's a Persian word, or it's a Turkish word, or it's a Kurdish word. And I don't speak any of these languages, and I have to find online somehow. I'm using different apps, and I found a couple of dictionaries, English Persian dictionary and Persian pronunciation guides, where I can listen to the words, what do they sound like, and then I can sort of try to write out the English pronunciation of it. So my fantasy world has these languages that I borrow from. Oh, Old French, that's another one because I have these peoples, the Dobrani people who live up there in the north, and they came there centuries ago and they've occupied that lake valley and they live there. They're not Frankic, they're Gallic. You know what I mean? Sort of. What I keep in mind when I'm writing about these people, I keep in mind the Gallic people. More specifically, the Gauls that went historically, the real Gauls that went through the Balkans, east, southeast, and they landed in Anatolia. The Galatians. These are actually Gauls historically. So I'm thinking about what was their language like. I'm digging up information on what roots does their language in the real world. What is their language? What did their language sound like? How did they merge with other languages? And what would their names be like if that's what I'm trying to use as a point of reference from the real world? You know what I mean? The thing with me is that I go through phases. I can only really pursue one of my art forms at a time. Right now it's music and mixing, while painting is taking a creative break. And I can relate to this too. Because it's not like every single day I'm torn between the three mediums. It's more like there is two on a given day. Writing, because I'm trying to maintain a routine and I'm trying to do this every day. Writing is like an everyday thing, an everyday grind. Painting is split in half because there is the oil painting and then there is acrylic painting. And somehow I don't feel the same about these two mediums. They feel very different to me. Like two different directions somehow. And so that happens occasionally. When I'm alone, I like to be alone. I have the peace of mind to paint. And so I just go and paint. On the days that I'm not alone, when my husband is at home, I don't have that same peace of mind. And so I tend to just try to stay alone in my office there. And I write more, or I go into music. So it's, again, it's writing and music, or it's writing and painting. You know what I mean? It used to be in the past, before I started working on the book, it used to be music and painting only. But now it's, writing is kind of every day, and then there is a fork, and it fluctuates. Oh, it's the same in Finnish with the vowels o and u. You're right. In that sense, the way foreign languages are handled in the USA is, shall we say, yeah, well, yes, it is very complicated. And I myself don't know all of this, so I'm learning as I go. And, there is Jessica. Jessica, hello. Hey there, Kat. Hope all is well. I'll be back in like a half hour. I gotta run something real quick at a place I go to for food. Sure, Jess, I'll be here in a half an hour. I don't think I'll be sitting here for an hour and a half, but for another hour, I think I'll be here. Maintaining these routines, these creative routines, is quite difficult sometimes, quite challenging. I talked about this on my last live stream. It's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a walking contradiction, because on the one hand, I feel like I do need a schedule of sorts, and I need to go into a routine and stick to that. And then inspiration and creative thinking is not a problem if there is a routine. If I know that every other day, every next day, no matter what, rain or shine, I will sit down and I will write, or I will go and I'll paint, But on the other hand, if there's too much routine, it kind of freaks me out. It freaks something out in me. My brain freaks out. And if there is too much routine and too much repetitiveness, my brain starts to react in a way that it wants more chaos. You know what I mean? It starts to do weird stuff, like all of a sudden I want to do something else. All of a sudden, instead of actually doing the thing that I was going to do, I feel like I want to just get out and sit down on the grass, and that's it. Or instead of doing what I actually planned to do, like I was writing for 3-4 days every day, and then bam, all of a sudden I just don't feel like writing. I just want to go, I want to pick up the guitar, and I want to spend time with music. Or I want to go and read. And I deep dive into some topic, I don't know, something, an archaeological find somewhere, or something about a region, about the Caucasus, or something on history, something like this, and I just deep dive into that, or something about stem cells, whatever it is. There is some sort of rabbit hole, and my brain just goes there, and I'm lost. And why am I going there? Why am I looking up this stuff? I have no idea. Why would I need it? No idea. And so if there's too much constraint, my brain sort of freaks out and blows it all apart. My carefully constructed schedule, which I was like, okay, I'll give myself a little break here, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this. And then bam, if there's too much of this, my brain just like goes, no, that's not what we're going to do. That's what I want to do, and I'm going to go there. And if I try to enforce it, then my brain just blanks out. It's like, I just go into daydreaming. I'm just not present. I'm trying to work on this, but it's kind of a difficult thing to reteach myself not to go into this semi-dissociated state. You know what I mean? When I'm kind of not present and I focus on some weird stuff. I don't know. I can understand that I've been seeing an old school friend again for the past 6 months. So much is changing for the better inside me right now that my urge to make music is tending to follow my feelings while my capacity for painting is currently overwhelmed. So you get it. That's kind of how it is. It's almost like there is this whole network, the whole nervous system, and it's a very broad band. You know what I mean? And there is some of it which is for music, and some of it that is for writing, and for other things, and for thinking, and for whatever, for a lot of things. It's like a very broad band. And then sometimes some sections of this band, or whatever this is, of this spectrum, they get overwhelmed and almost roasted, and they need to rest, and then it fluctuates like a wave into something else. And maybe the brain and the nervous system is just trying to compensate and trying to regulate itself through this. I suspect, maybe that's what it is. To avoid burnout, or to avoid being fried creatively, to avoid creative burnout. At least that's my theory. And that's good that you're spending more time in nature. I'm practicing an interesting attention dopamine. You probably know about the dopamine reward system, right? And you probably know about the danger and the harm that constant stimulation does to our brain and nervous system. So what I'm consciously doing nowadays, in order so that I can get more focused, so that I can get more done, and so that I can unclutter myself, because I get very easily overwhelmed even by the presence of another human being in the same space. And that's why it's so extremely difficult for me to live with anybody at all, regardless of the kind of relationship. It's very difficult for me. I guess I'm just not built for living with someone 24/7, being, with other people. I need other people. I'm actually a very sociable person, but I need my space, and I need solitude. I really need solitude. And if I don't get enough solitude, I'm depleted. So what I'm practicing to both alleviate this stress, declutter my mind, and gain more focus, when I wake up, I spend at least 10 to 20 minutes just staring into the ceiling or at a wall. It doesn't matter. I just sit still, or I lay still. I'm not asleep. And I am not stimulating myself. I'm deliberately getting very bored in that time. You see what I mean? I can spin some thoughts in my mind, or I cannot spin any thoughts in my mind. I'm trying to give my brain rest, active rest. So instead of grabbing a phone, instead of running to do the next thing, instead of absorbing in any information at all, it's just silence. I'm not talking to myself. I'm not actively watching anything. I'm just gazing basically in the same direction. And I allow the brain to calm down. And it seems to work. It does something. And sometimes in the middle of the day, when I feel that I'm a little too pumped, or I'm really exhausted, and I just can't. There's just too many things going on at the same time. There are 13 cats living in this house. It's very taxing. I love animals, I love cats, but it's too much. There are too many moving parts, you know what I mean? It's way too much. It fries my brain. It fries my nervous system, because I'm simultaneously holding in my mind multiple thoughts. Some of them are book related, and there's a huge concepts and huge ideas that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind 24/7. Then there are musical ideas that are spinning somewhere in the back of my mind, again, because I'm working on an album. Then there is also painting, and I'm watching the painters that I'm learning from. And then there is that information. And then there's 13 cats, you know, who are chaotic, and I love them. I love each one of them, but it's a lot, you know. And so this weighs and depletes and sucks out the focus and all of this. And I get extremely tired. You know what I mean? Exhausted. It's like working a full-time job, only you're not getting paid for it. With the difference that it's also, it's not a 9 to 5 job, but it's permanent. To make up for that, I spend a lot of time in nature. And through writing, I sort out my thoughts philosophically. Yes. And that's a wonderful, from a therapeutic viewpoint, that's a great way to go about it. Yes. I think you're understanding it correctly. Yep. I can also completely relate to that huge need to be alone while also wanting to connect with people. Yeah. And that's ultimately something that I want to achieve in the future. I used to have it, and that was, in that regard, it was the safest and happiest time of my life when I was all by myself. Yes, it had its tremendous challenges, and as far as my struggles and circumstances and all of this. But on the bright side, I was all by myself, and I had more control over how many people do I want to see per day. How much information am I willing to absorb per day? And I'm not talking just information like the audio visual sort of information. No, I'm talking also about emotional information, because I'm picking up all the emotional cues and all the emotional climate from other people right away. That's just how I am. I can't avoid it. I can't turn it off. That's just how it is. And on the one hand, as a human being, and I'm neither fully extroverted nor am I fully introverted. I guess I'm some sort of blend of the two. Like, I know that there are people like this. So I do need social interactions, and I need, other people. And I have something to share with other people. But then on the flip side, if I don't spend enough time with myself alone, then I don't recharge. Like, the battery is drained all the time. You know what I mean? There's only so much that I can take. And sometimes it feels like a weird contradiction. Well, it's like, I want to go out there. I want to be out there. But then I get out into public and I feel just so horribly drained just by going through Walmart. And I don't know why, just because I'm picking up all of these cues and I see, if there is something that I absorb that I don't really like, it just drains me. And I guess I'm not the only one. I guess there are people like this with such things. Yep. But that is beauty of being endowed with such an expansive mind, even if it is often exhausting. Yeah, that's. I don't remember who said this. There is always a price that comes with, hypersensitive minds, expansive thinking, these kind of things. There is always a price to pay for this. That's just how it is. I feel very similar to you, but suspected it was due to a rough childhood. I think one does not exclude the other. And I think to a large extent, we do have, people like us, I guess, for lack of a better term. Part of why we do have rough childhoods, maybe, is because we are wired in a slightly different way, or maybe not in a slightly different way. Maybe we're wired quite differently, and then we sort of mute ourselves, or we block out certain parts of ourselves, while simultaneously oftentimes being traumatized by the realities that surround us, sometimes by our parents, by other adults, by elder siblings, whatever. Everyone's story is different, but it appears that neurodivergent people, they don't flourish, they don't blossom to their full extent since their young age. Usually they run into some sort of resistance. You know what I mean? And that leaves a mark that is traumatizing, depleting, and exhausting. Try to avoid people like the plague. Wild nodding. Patrick says, wild nodding. I wouldn't say that I'm trying to avoid people like the plague. I'm trying to avoid people, the wrong people. And there is something I want to say about trauma, about childhood trauma. Not only childhood trauma, but let's start there. Childhood trauma. One of the things I realized maybe just recently in the past 2 years is how devastating the impact of it can be without you even realizing how deeply traumatized you are. I mean, that's something that I realized maybe in the last 2 years only. It's a feeling, you don't really see how blind you are until you have the ability to see fully. But then once you see everything in full color, that's when it finally gets to you that, for example, I'm using it as a metaphor, right? Then you finally realize that all of this time you didn't see that particular color, or you didn't see any colors at all, but you were seeing everything in black and white. And you thought that that is normal, but it was not normal. It was horrible. And that's the feeling that I get from these last 2 years, because under the layer of trauma associated with, the abuses that I've endured as a kid, then as a teenager, then as a growing up young adult, as a trans woman, all of those experiences that I went through, under that layer, a thick, dense layer of rubble, it turned out that I didn't really know who I am until I had to do a lot of excavation work to realize that underneath, I thought that I am very thick-skinned. I thought that I'm very tough. It turned out that I'm hypersensitive. It turned out that I'm very likely neurodivergent, because that's how my brain naturally works. Nowadays, I'm not suppressing my natural way of thinking. I allow myself to flourish. I support myself. I work with my inner child instead of trying to enforce some sort of rigid patterns onto myself. Something I was doing to myself for many years, and without realizing, what am I doing to myself? I didn't realize that I'm harming myself by repeating the patterns that I've absorbed from toxic people who hurt me. So now, with the work that I'm doing nowadays, it allows me to see things from a completely different angle, in full color. And that's when it finally dawns on me how blinded I was for most of my life. And I'm looking back at the past versions of myself, and I see how, when I was abused, when I was absorbing some toxic behaviors, I was acting in a toxic way without even seeing this. And while I was in that mode, while I was doing those things, I was simultaneously further depleting myself and further hurting myself, and unable to see what is happening within me and with the people around me, how I was hurting others inadvertently, thinking that I'm doing all the right things, which I wasn't. It's a cascade effect, and there are like, I think there is multiple layers to this. And if I think if you're the hypersensitive type naturally, then you're just wired in a specific way. And then if there is a layer of trauma on top of this, it complicates everything. And it requires a lot of careful work, I think. This constant desire to understand, wanting to understand oneself better too, is part of it. Unlike those people who prefer to shut themselves off, become desensitized, and go numb. Yeah? Betty, please explain more about the desensitized people. And then realizing that you aren't wrong, but simply wonderful in a different way. Yep. One of the most liberating things that I've discovered is that in the past, I don't remember, since school, probably, I was really unconsciously trying to fit in very hard. And I never could. And it was a thing that was running like a red thread throughout my life. And maybe just in the past, again, in the recent 2-3 years, I finally feel like I'm not trying to fit in with anybody at all. And it goes for everything, you know. I'm finally okay with not being ever able to fit in back in my home country in Russia. Like, it's okay, you know. It's still a fact that I was born in Moscow, Russia. No problem with that. But there's also no problem and nothing wrong with me not being able to fit in there. That's just how it is. But I'm also okay with not fitting in here because I'm an immigrant and because I'm just different. You know, I stopped comparing myself to or expecting myself to match any expectation of that I should be, since I'm living in the United States, I should be. No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. And by the way, it's not just about me, it's about everybody. None of us should. There's too much expectations in society for each one of us. But I tend to think that the truth might be that each one of us, I see human beings as sparks, little wisps that come. I don't know where do we come from, and I don't know where do we go. I'm not going to claim that I have the answers, but we certainly do come from somewhere, maybe from some sort of universal source. And maybe we pick a vessel and we happen to appear at a certain time. We get born to certain parents in certain circumstances, and we don't realize what even, I don't know, we forget probably why did we even want to come. Then we come and we live. And then there's a society and all the buzz and all the, you know, activities and, you know, all the cultural norms and standards of this and that and that and that and that. And maybe we then forget, why did we actually come here? And then we die. And we leave and we go somewhere. Maybe we go back to the source. But all of us, we come from somewhere and we go somewhere. And we're all like travelers, basically. Everybody's a traveler. And we're all here temporarily. Life is a journey. And maybe on some level, I'm trying to remember, why did I even come here? I know it sounds kind of crazy, but bear with me. It's maybe it's a philosophical question. I don't know. But you see what I mean. So in line of this kind of thinking, I try to deconstruct all of my urges to fit in here, to try to match those expectations. No, I'm not supposed to match those expectations. I am the weird, quirky thing that came here into this world. And so are you, each one of you watching. You see what I mean? Thank you, Justin Powers. Thank you very much. Then realizing that you, yes, I did also. Thank you, Dookie McDuck. Thank you very much. As a result of their trauma, many people slip into a mode of pure functioning, shutting out empathy from their being. For instance, narcissists are a prime example. Why you draw your eyebrow? I don't know, just because I feel like it. You're not crazy. I think exactly the same way on the other side of the planet. Yeah? Believe me, most of the day, most of the time, I don't even wear makeup. If I was living in a city, I think I would be doing my makeup every day. And I used to do my makeup every day, more or less. I'm not in the city and it's 30 degrees centigrade, so I kind of didn't want to put any makeup at all today. But then I thought, well, I just feel maybe I want to. I don't know. I'm just going with the feeling. Um, there was something I wanted to say. Something I wanted to say. About mode of pure functioning. Mode of pure functioning. Um, yes, one of the outcomes of trauma is we oftentimes we get dissociated. The harsher version of dissociation, to my understanding, is depersonalization. Um, but dissociation is a natural mechanism. It's a defense mechanism, essentially. The problem with this is that severely traumatized people, if you get hit hard enough, if you get broken hard enough, you just shut off without controlling this. It happens automatically. And then the danger is that you stay in that state or it becomes habitual. You know what I mean? Over time, you shut off again, you shut off again, you shut off again. And sometimes then you shut off for a whole day. And then maybe you feel something only when there is a specific little trigger. And sometimes you shut off for months and years. And I think some people, the people you're talking about, Patrick, I think they shut off and they kind of disappear into that automatic sort of functioning without realizing this. They're doing the right things. They're going on autopilot through their day. They're going to work. They talk to other people on autopilot. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. What a wonderful day. Nice to meet you. And it's all the the automated responses and responses to stimuli. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of them don't even realize that underneath all of this, it's a mask. It's not who they actually are. But over time, if there is prolonged dissociation, the person starts to perceive this mask as their identity. They start to identify with this mask. And that's, I think, something that happened to me in the past because I thought that I am emotionless a lot of the time. I thought that I am super calm, No, I wasn't. It's just that there was so much buried underneath. It's kind of like a Chernobyl site, when there's this huge dome, a concrete dome, but underneath there is all that nuclear waste, And if you break the dome, all of it starts to leak. So I think a lot of people are walking around with, and the dangerous stuff is that they don't even realize that because all of it is suppressed and it is buried deep inside under the mask, it doesn't eliminate it. It still affects their day-to-day behavior. It still informs their impulses. It still informs their desires. Only it's those suppressed things, everything that is repressed, it becomes either toxic or deviant, but it still runs their lives. That's the danger of it, because then you don't control it. It just spills out in ways that you can't predict. And depending on what kind of person that is and what kind of trauma did they have and what exactly is being suppressed, it can blow up in a gazillion different ways. You know what I mean? People mock me because of unibrows. That's stupid. They shouldn't be mocking you for unibrows or whatever. Ducky McDuck, it's just nice to hear others do the same to a degree. Yeah, and it's empowering to just know that they're like, you're not the only one crazy. You're not the only one different, that there are other people who have similar traits. It's good to know. Want to live city, live in a small town. Ah, I don't know what to tell you. If you have the opportunity, move, make the decision, make the necessary preparations. I'm me, frankly, I was born in a big city. I grew up in a big city, spent most of my life in a big city. I have tremendous appreciation for, nature and all of that. But after living for 7 years out in the countryside, I realized that I don't want to live in the countryside for the rest of my life. This is just not me. I need to find something for myself, you know. So I do intend in the future to move to a big city and to a different country. And it's going to be difficult again, but that's okay. That's okay. I I'm on a journey and I'm a traveler through this life. And so are you. So just I think my path is crazy in some ways. And I say this because I know that a lot of people, there are other people who are wired differently. For example, there are these people who like to do the same stuff over and over again, and it makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel happy. And it occurs to me sometimes when I come across these people that just how vastly different people can be. It really freaks me out when I think about it. Because to me, too much repetition, it doesn't give me a sense of stability. It does the opposite, actually. It suffocates me. And then I look at people who do the same stuff over and over again, and they're very stable, and they're very happy with that. And that's apparently what they desire. And they're not crazy. They're just very different. You know what I mean? But sometimes it blows my mind to think about this. That happened to me too. For the longest time, I came across as rather cold and almost devoid of emotion. After my burnout and with the help of therapy and reconnecting with a friend from my kindergarten and school days, after 30 years, I've become incredibly prone to tears. I think I've shed more tears in the last 6 months than in the previous 35 years combined. Oh, I can so relate. And that's a good thing, Patrick. That's a very good thing. You're coming alive. And all that weight, all that burden that you were carrying within yourself, whatever it was, it's getting out. As it should. I probably told this story, and you probably know this story. It's kind of a famous observation about how animals react to threat. About a deer and, say, a bear. What happens to a deer that was cornered by a bear? The deer can have three responses. It can have fight or flight, or it can have fawn. And that's how we know. It can also have freeze. That's another one. Fight or flight, they're kind of paired, so it's 1, 2. Fawn, I would put it on the in the end of the list, and then there's freeze. If the deer survives, if the deer can't fight and it can't run away, it is cornered, it will freeze, most likely. And if it survives, if someone, spooks off the bear and the deer maybe is wounded and the bear didn't finish it or whatever, the deer will get out of the freeze state and it will shake, will have a tremor. So what you will see is that the animal will be all shaking for about 10 minutes. And then after that, it will get up and it will go about its regular business like nothing ever happened. In animals, in mammals, these things happen automatically. And we have that same wiring, we have that same system embedded in us because we're mammals too. The problem with humans is that we have developed these very sophisticated brains, very complex neural pathways. We have all this really highly organized nervous system and very large brains. And so this default system doesn't kick in most of the time. So most of the time with most people, what happens is that we internalize, we absorb this damage, whatever happens. It might be like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I saw Afghan war veterans in the metro, in the Moscow underground metro, without limbs. I saw extreme poverty growing up. I saw a person being killed. I've seen those things. And I didn't react. I just absorbed it, and then nothing happened. Because, when I was a kid, I was punished for shedding any tears. So I was forbidden from crying. I couldn't cry. And then I didn't cry for many years. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I would have these completely debilitating, like, bouts of deep depression when it would just go over me like, I don't know, like a freight train. It just slams into you out of nowhere, something, a scent, a noise, or something visual triggers something. And the whole nervous system it collapses. Something, whatever, falls apart. And you don't even know what it is. But those are the long consequences. Sometimes it comes with a flashback. Sometimes it's just a nervous system not being able to hold that freeze state anymore. It just falls apart because the body starts to collapse. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying, and I probably said this multiple times, and it's well researched. You can look it up yourself. It's pretty damn interesting. Mammals, they react to stress, trauma, hurt, pain, threat of death. They respond a lot quicker, and we don't. And this is part of the problem. You know what I mean? And so humans need to take the extra steps to unearth all of this, to untangle all of these problems, and to let go of them. And if you don't do that, then it sits in your body because trauma gets stored, and then it starts to deplete you physically because it's in your tense muscles, it's stored in your cells. All of that emotion that you didn't let go of, that you don't even know is sitting there. That pain, that ache is eating through your bone marrow. It's eating through your brain cells. It's depleting your gray matter. It's doing all of those horrible things to you. And then one day, all of a sudden, bam, you have cancer, or you have an autoimmune disease, or you have deficiency. You're depleted in this or deficient in that. And you don't even know, where did this come from? You were trying to live a healthy lifestyle. You thought you were tough, but you weren't. You know what I mean? Because nobody's really tough. We're not. We're just not. I think people are far more vulnerable than they realize. And the kind of society that we're living in, I think it doesn't make it any easier for people to realize just how vulnerable they are. Let me read the comments. Yes, the parasympathetic system, yes. The Apple says, I'm 19 years old. At time I highly awakened spiritually, but this time, not that path hunt money, girls I want. Being too soft is people betray you. Well, there are, let's say, certain challenges that come with your age, because people of your age are usually overwhelmed with a lot of things and tend to be self-centered. So if you are on a spiritual path at that age, if you are different, it is difficult in its own way. One thing I can say, just give it some time, be patient. But protect your boundaries. I don't know your life situation. I don't know what you're going through. Don't know all of these things, but protect your boundaries. Protect your mental health. But be patient with other people, because other people might be going through something similar. Dookie McDuke says, I can relate to the depression. That's probably why I drink more than I care to. Lol. I want to say don't drink, but I know that it's not going to work unless you feel the need not to drink. It's not going to help. I also tend to see such things as coping, because the reason why people drink or the reason why people smoke, I was a smoker since I was 12. I'm still vaping. So I'm not going to tell other people what not to do. Basically, I know that we're coping. Maybe giving ourselves something that we're missing. The trick is to find what exactly are you missing and to maybe approach it in a strategic way. You know what I mean? And just to give yourself that thing that you crave, but in a more wholesome way, in a healthier way, so that you won't be hurting your body. Where should I go, Asia or South America? Oh, gosh, that's a good question. And Asia, probably. But that's my kind of geopolitical thinking kicking in right now, because I'm well aware of the appetites of American corporate capitalism for South America. I know that they got their eyes on South America, basically. And a certain country who is actively committing genocide right now, their people are actively moving to Argentina. I don't know what you know about this. They're actively colonizing Argentina. So I would see South America as, I don't know. Is it safe long term? I don't really know. But then again, it depends on how you think about it. If you think in terms of safety, that's one layer of things. Like if you're thinking in terms of safety, probably one should not go and live in Syria right now. But if you're thinking in other terms, like things that you want, and maybe there is a geographical area where you want to be specifically. For example, I want to specifically live in the Mediterranean region, and that's it. How exactly am I going to go about this? That's a different question, because I have to factor in a whole lot of things. The cost of living, what country can I get into, what is technically possible for me, and how do I go about these things? So that's more about strategy. So yeah, and Duke and McDuke, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Depends on what you're looking for. Is it business or a vacation? Neither really. I have freedom and I can afford to go wherever, McDuke. I was thinking Philippines, Thailand, or South America. Um, I know that if you're an American citizen, you can go to Belize, for example, and you can stay up to. First of all, you don't need a visa to go to Belize. You can go there and you can stay there for up to 1 year, as far as I remember, without any paperwork at all. Another country on this list with similar allowances for US citizens is Cambodia. That's the second country. The third country is Albania. Again, you can move in and you can rent or whatever. You can stay for a whole year. You don't even need a visa, as far as I remember. Then, after 1 year, if you want to stay any further, then you have to work through the paperwork and do these kind of things. Philippines is also on this list, and then the other country is Georgia. So, but it depends on what you want. How do you want to go about it? It's definitely wonderful to finally shed empathetic tears over so many beautiful things too. Yes, Patrick, exactly. Doesn't it feel great to be alive? To feel alive, actually, that your cells are breathing. After all, it's not just because of sad things. Yeah, it's not just about the sad things. It's also about, the joyful things, or the tears of joy, or just being able to, breathe and feel at home in your body. And that's a huge benefit that I've discovered so recently, that I'm at peace within my body finally, that I can feel that that I inhabit this vessel belongs to me. That I'm not watching a movie about myself, and because that was a running theme throughout my life, for as long as I could remember myself. I had this feeling that wouldn't go away, that I'm watching a movie, some sort of movie, but it's not even my life. Like, I'm just, doing something. I'm being with people and being without people. Something happens to me and I'm just watching it. From a distance, from far, far, far away, or it's like through very thick glass and it doesn't touch me. You know what I mean? That was most of my life. So to be finally in the body, it feels extremely liberating. It feels so weird. I'm still getting used to it. And I guess you're still getting used to it, Patrick. But I'm super happy for you. Yes, but being empathetic doesn't mean not setting boundaries. That's right. Because you have to set boundaries. You have to protect your privacy. You have to protect yourself. And I think a lot of us who went through these things, through abuses or through this dissociation, through these debilitating things, some of us don't understand how important it is to set boundaries. But if we fail to set them, we are vulnerable to exploitation again and again. We have to do this. It's not someone else's job, really, to do this for us. That's something we have to learn to do. Drinking amplifies pain for me, doesn't numb it. Perhaps you really need to let the pain out. Because, I'm thinking, if drinking amplifies your pain, then why do you keep drinking? You keep amplifying the pain, right? It's like if something is hurting, right? And you just dig that wound. Why do you do this? Maybe you're trying to hear something within yourself. Because here's the thing. Think about it. Pain Pain is something that we need. I'm not saying this in a masochistic way. No. Quite literally, pain is a signal that something is wrong. It's a message from your body, usually, if we're talking about physical pain. It's a message that tells you, hey, something is wrong. Over here, your brain knows. Because our brain likes to tell us all sorts of lies that I'm fine, I'm okay, whatever, I'm healthy, like this didn't happen, that didn't happen. Or the brain will construct and fill in the blanks with some whatever story. Our brains lie to us very often. But the body is being brutally honest. Like if you cut your arm, it will hurt. And the mechanism, the reason why there is pain and you're supposed to feel pain is because you're supposed to turn your attention to the wound. So if you're drinking and by drinking, you're amplifying the pain. Maybe you're trying to amplify the signal. Maybe there is something that you're trying to hear to learn about yourself inside, and you're using alcohol as a medium, as a means of amplifying this signal because you don't have any other means to do that. You see what I mean? This is just a theory. Of course, I don't know anything about your life. Justin Power says, I have to go. Thank you for saving your live streams. I love listening to intelligent spoken discussions. Thank you, Justin, very much for showing up. And it's actually pretty interesting that you said this about saving the live streams, because recently I was thinking, probably I should delete the old live streams and just, do the current one, let it sit for a week maybe, and then delete the old ones. But if you find the old ones useful, then I won't do this and I'll just let them be. Dookie McDuck, when I'm sober, I'm serious. Drinking is the only time I laugh and joke around. Well, similarly, I think you need to, something has to go. It's almost like there is some sort of dam that is holding stuff within you. I understand everybody's wired different, but however, Patrick says, I actually do smoke, though not very much these days. But when I'm out with my acquaintance from kindergarten, I have absolutely no desire for alcohol or cigarettes. Well, that's the thing, Patrick. That's the thing about attention, and about, I think it has to do with the dopamine reward system. And maybe you're feeling in something when you don't have your friend around. You're feeling in the void or your needs with something else. E93KE556. I don't know what's your name. Women are lost in USA. I'm an American male Christian. I'd love to meet a good wife, being honest. I don't think, I don't really want to go there because there is a lot to unpack. It depends on what women are you talking about. It depends on what kind of American male Christian are you, and it depends on what do you mean by a good wife. There is a whole lot of things that are variable. And depending on what do you think about these things and what is your attitude towards these things, it might reveal what exactly are you suppressing and what exactly creates the tension within your mind and within your nervous system. I talked about this on my other live streams when I was talking about the repressive nature of the Western society. Why does this happen? At least my understanding of this. Why does this happen? Where does it come from? I actually happen to think that women globally are waking up to see under what repression were they living for centuries. I mean the patriarchy, of course. And I personally would like for men, I would like to, I'm not forcing anybody, I can't force anybody, I can just talk about this and express my thoughts freely, right? I would like for more men to examine the norms, the societal norms that they're living in. Because I think that once they start to examine them, they will come to a realization that these same systems, they are hurting them as well, too. I probably said this on the last live stream. I will repeat it again. One of the most certain ways to ensure that there is no rebellion to tyranny is to give the opportunity to every man to be a little tyrant. That's how it worked for centuries. And so men did not rebel against a select few, the privileged class, who professed their will over millions for a very long time, men and women. They built hierarchical structures. And we're living today through the same stuff. I mean, all the troubles that we're observing today, societal unrest, the malaises of today, the wars, the unrest, the geopolitical conflicts, the wealth gap, the income gap, the 1% filthy rich people and everybody else struggling. All of these things, they come from the same equation. And I think that unless enough people see what does this system run on, they won't be able to free themselves from it. They won't be able to realize their full potential. And it goes for both men and women. There's a lot of women who don't realize that they're trying to sell themselves within a patriarchal system, that they're devaluing themselves. It hurts them and they don't see it. I'm talking about this confidently because I've been one of them. I was trying to fit in so hard, only to realize that that's not the story of my life, and I'm actually not supposed to do it. But men are similarly hurting themselves as well, because there are a lot of men, I'm not saying everybody, a lot of men are engaged in this pursuit of success, and it's kind of like, it's homosocial. You know what I mean? They're not really focused on their own growth. They're not really focused on being the best version of themselves. They're not really engaged with women, but instead, they're looking up to someone, to another dude over there, to that other man over there. They're trying to prove something to someone. They're running around with fragile egos. They're trying to prove something to women. They're trying to prove something to children. They're trying to prove something to other men. There is a lot of this, and it's an enormous topic to talk about. Again, I talk about this here and there a little bit, virtually on every live stream, I guess. So, and I'm trying not to be judgmental. I'm really trying not to be judgmental, because I know that people are different. I know everybody got their own circumstances, but I also do realize that all of us are living in a humongous system that it was exploiting both sexes for the longest time. And something has to be said about this. There has to be some sort of awareness, you know? I can't pretend that it doesn't exist, because once you see something, you can't unsee it, really. You know what I mean? And so nowadays, I guess, when you, E93KA556, don't know what's your name, you're saying women are lost in USA. I don't know what do you mean. I really don't know what do you mean. From what viewpoint? What do you mean? You mean the women who are waking up from the patriarchy, right? And realizing there is something horribly wrong about their lives, and that they are not supposed to adhere to these draconian rules that were imposed on them for centuries. Do you mean those women? Or what do you mean? And good wife. I mean, it's so subjective. What do you mean by good wife? I don't know. I sincerely wish you all the best at the same time. It's not like I'm trying to pick on you or anything. It's hard to tell. I've had both domestic and imported. Finnish. I prefer imported. What are we talking about? Imported when I'm sober. You're talking about probably alcohol. Yeah, I don't drink anymore. Stop smoking weed and drinking. Working on kicking the cigarettes too. Wishing you good luck. Vaping helped me quit smoking. I'm not going to advertise vaping though, because it comes with its own risks. I know that it helped me to get out of a habit that was probably a lot more harmful. But if you don't vape and don't smoke, don't begin. Don't start. That's the message I can clearly tell anybody. Don't start. There is no need. It doesn't make you look cool. It's not. Society wiped shame on dictionary. That's why Americans looked for humans. What language are you originally writing in, Abel? Because I think if it's not in English originally, it's very hard to understand. What do you mean? Women will treat me like a king in other countries. I have suspicions about you. I think you expect women to treat you as a king, and that's part of the problem. So I think that if that's what you're looking for in a different country, I kind of see it as futile. Seriously, I think it's a futile endeavor, because it's not about the women, it's about you. It's about your perception of women. Maybe it has to do with the fact that you do not perceive women as equal to you. You do not perceive them as living, breathing human beings in the first place. Not objects, but human beings with needs, with desires. That's the vibe that I'm getting here. And I think maybe that's the problem. And the solution to this, and I'm being honest with you, whatever your name is, I don't know what's your name, I'm being honest with you. The solution is not to go to other countries looking for subservient women there, because that won't give you true fulfillment. That will not give you true connection and true intimacy and a fulfilling relationship. It won't give you that. You're looking for someone to dominate. You're looking for someone to perceive you as a king. That's the problem. The problem is your attitude. And you said that you're an American Christian. I think that thinking comes exactly from there, because um, the version of the Bible that the West is obsessing about is a very patriarchal book. It has nothing to do with the original teaching of Jesus, by the way. And it has been designed and rewritten multiple times to serve the interests of the elites, of the power elites. That's how it is. And this kind of thinking towards women, that's hurting you, and you see how it affects your life. Now all of a sudden you're looking for a different country to go, and you think that American women are lost or something's wrong with them. Why won't you look at yourself and ask the question, maybe something is wrong with your attitude towards women? And maybe that prevents you from seeing something that you've been missing, perhaps for most of your life. I don't know, how old are you? But that's something to think about. Not telling you what to think. I'm just offering you, a different perspective. That was my theory too, but I'm really surprised by the huge difference. When I run into them a few days in a row, I don't smoke or drink at all for days. I hardly drink anymore anyway. Maybe it has to do with dopamine. But smoking thing really struck me. Not only the income gap, but also and especially the stark disparity in assets. Oh yes. Oh yes. All of that. And I think, gosh, I mean, it's genius and it's dark at the same time. Can you imagine someone centuries ago invented this system? They thought about this. They really thought it out. That you need to get men out of the way. Who are men supposed to be naturally? I know it's going to sound a little weird. Maybe coming from me, but men are protectors. In the first place, men are protectors to women and to children. Men are supposed to bring stability and protection. It's kind of important, because if a man is able to bring stability and protection to a woman, then he becomes a threat. So, if there is someone who wants to enslave men without even realizing them, without them realizing that they have been enslaved, that someone will design some sort of a competitive hierarchical structure to keep these men busy competing with one another, not being able to separate themselves from their own egos. This system will be a self-reinforcing loop. So it will run over generations, over and over. And, an insecure man in the previous generation will traumatize his son and his daughters too, whatever, his children in the next generation. And that's, there's a term, generational trauma. It kind of keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. All those toxic behaviors keep accumulating and accumulating from family to family to family to family. And then people say, well, it's tradition. We have been living like this forever. So no, we're not going to change anything. Really? How about, your grandma and your grandpa over there, it actually killed them. They died of cancer, or they died of, whatever. It killed them. Maybe there was something that they didn't know, or maybe there was something that they did not consider. Because just mindlessly repeating the same pattern, and never questioning that, that's dangerous. But I think this happens on autopilot. A lot of this is happening. You know what I mean? And I think there's just a general lack of awareness among people. I think women are awakening to these things faster globally. And I'm not talking just about America. I'm talking about the global population. Globally, women are waking up faster to this because they have been the ones oppressed under patriarchal systems, not the other way around. So women are coming to these realizations from that end of things. You know what I mean? That something needs to be changed. It cannot function the way it was functioning for generations. It's not going to work. I mean, my generation of millennials, we see in plain sight a lot of things are just not going to work the way they work for boomers. And when the boomers are trying to tell us that, no, you just got to work hard and you got to strive for that, and things are going to happen. No, they're not going to happen because it's not the 70s anymore. You know what I mean? And yeah, sure, boomers are different in different countries. Like there's a difference between Russian boomers who are still, a lot of them are so nostalgic about the good old USSR and have zero self-awareness because they don't want to think. They're preoccupied with their childhood memories, which I understand. We like our childhood memories, and over time we forget the bad stuff and then we remember just the good stuff. You remember your grandma. You remember your parents when they were younger. You remember yourself when you were, little, and maybe there's something that's stuck in your mind. I get it. But you cannot draw conclusions about an entire society and that, well, you just have to do like that and that because I was a kid back then. No, it's most likely not going to work in today's reality. But a lot of people are not aware about this. You know what I mean? There is a lot of this. So there are problems between generations. Things have developed and things have changed in the world dramatically. How do you say this? It's been escalating. The curve of how many things per year have happened was accelerating across the last 2 centuries. It was going up like this. More and more things were happening. More and more change was happening per cubic year, let's say, right? Scientific discoveries, technology, blah, 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 blah. Women's rights, this and that, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. The consumer market, this and this and this and this. But somehow, I think a lot of people don't realize that change happens a lot faster. There's a lot more of it. And it's very demanding because we have to kind of catch up to that. And some of it is artificial because some of that change is being pushed upon us by the powers that be, and that's inherently anti-human. It's against our human nature, and that's something we should not succumb to. Like, for example, the AI. We should not replace our thinking with artificial intelligence. You are supposed to think for yourself, Seriously. And it goes for everything. Because if we outsource our thinking to the machines, we will lose that ability. It's a muscle. If you do not think, you lose that ability. If you do not exercise, you will lose your muscle mass. You won't be capable anymore. That's just how it works, It's kind of Captain Obvious, I mean, what am I even talking about? Let me get through the comments. Men just want to be respected. What do you mean by this? Men just want to be respected. I'm sitting here and wondering, how old are you? E93 key E556. Men just want to be respected. What do you mean by men want to be respected? And by the way, not saying that men don't deserve respect. Men deserve respect when a man had earned respect. That's when he deserves respect. Respect is something that is being earned. Now, of course, there is basic human dignity. But what I hear oftentimes, and what I see oftentimes, and what I myself have experienced throughout my life, is men who somehow feel intensely entitled to what they say is respect from women. No, that's not really respect that they crave. They crave for their ego to be patted. They have inflated egos, and they expect women to dance around them and to cater to their egos. And they themselves are blind to, they don't even realize how harmful, how toxic, how obnoxious they are. Then they wonder why women don't want to do anything with me. Well, maybe that's why. You know what I mean? So there is a lot of problems with this phrase. Men just want to be respected. It's very broad. And like I said, it's a catchphrase that usually means something completely different. Cigarette and wipes is injurious to health. Monthly 4 time using high quality weed smoke with beautiful souls. I can't say anything about weed because I don't smoke weed. I don't understand how it works, or whatever. So the able message. Okay. That's true. Both sides are prey to the system. Yes. Divorce rates are up. Single motherhood is up. It isn't just women, men too. Well, that's kind of a tricky way to put it. Divorce rates are up. I'll tell you what. Divorce rates are up in the first place because women are not willing to put up with the same old BS that they were sold for, the last decades, and more precisely for the last centuries. Women had enough of the same old BS. There is a trend. There is a pattern, let's say. People who like to call themselves more conservative, more traditional, they like to allude to the good old days when the society was more patriarchal, when societies were, when there were more traditional values. What they really mean by that, and many of them don't even realize this, what they mean by that, in other words, is when women were second after men, when women were subservient to men, when women didn't have rights like men did. It's not only America. That's also my home country too, Russia, where I come from. I'm not a fan of Bolsheviks. I'm not a communist or anything like that. However, I have to say huge thank you to the Bolsheviks in 1917 because when they took over in 1917, finally, for the first time in history, Russian women could have their own passports. They were finally recognized by Russian law as equal to men, as citizens. Mind-boggling. Pretty wild, So when people are talking about traditional, divorce rates are up, I'm telling you why divorce rates are up. Because women don't want to put up with the same BS that they were sold in the past. Younger women don't want to put up with this. Younger women are asking themselves a reasonable question. If I can provide for myself, if I can raise my child myself also, and I don't necessarily need a man for this, then why should I play those games? It's a good question. Single motherhood is up. And why do you think why do you think, what's your opinion? Why do you think single motherhood is up? Let me guess, you probably would pin that on women, that it's somehow their fault. It isn't just women, men too. No, it's not just women, but it's men too. No, it's mostly men. I'm sorry. It's mostly men, statistically speaking. Look up the stats. Dig into this topic if you really want to know the truth. Because I understand. If you have an ego problem, you won't go looking for that truth. You won't be talking to women asking about their side of the story. If you have an ego problem, you won't go there. It won't let you. If you set your ego aside and you free some room within yourself for honest inquiry, and you go and you talk to women and you ask them honest questions, tell me, what are we doing wrong? Listen to women and what they're saying. And maybe then you will get the answers, you know? Instead of just, oh, it isn't just women, it's men too. I'm sorry. I think you need some more self-awareness, really. And in reality, gender is fluid. An acquaintance of mine is, for a woman, on the masculine side and is bisexual with a preference for women. Yeah, it happens. She also sees a lot of feminine aspects in me, which explains quite a bit. And by the way, Patrick, I gotta say that you'll be surprised. Maybe you probably will not be surprised. But a lot of men would be surprised to know that the most rebellious, the strongest-willed men are the men who have incorporated, who discovered within themselves their feminine aspects. These are the men who are the most confident, who feel the most comfortable living within their skin, who don't have the urge to prove to other guys, look, I'm better than you. Look, I have a better car. I have a more beautiful wife than you. I fucked more women than you. You see what I mean? Men who are in touch with their feminine side, they're not, it doesn't make them more effeminate. It makes them more masculine. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that a lot of men don't understand. I see occasionally, this content from the manosphere. It's insane to me. All of these coaches preaching to single men, miserable single men who can't see through their egos. They don't see why women don't want to have anything to do with them. They don't see that because they're so full of themselves. They act like small little boys who are still 4 or 5 years old, who are still looking for a mama. But what's scarier is that these grown-up adults, they're supposed to be adults, but they have the thinking of a 4-year-old. They want a mama, they want a nanny, and they want a whore, all in one woman. That is the problem. And the reason why divorce rates are up and single motherhood is up, and the reason why, men think that women are being confrontational nowadays and they're all just crazy. No, they're not. Women don't want to play this game anymore. More and more women. Yes, there are still some women who did not wake up to the realities of it. But a lot of women don't want to play this game anymore. You see what I mean? Because no reasonable adult human being wants to babysit a man boy. You know what I mean? I don't take it as picking on me unless you say you are. No, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying things the way they are, and that's all it is. I'm not trying to, insult you or anything. I mean, I said before on this live stream, life is a journey. I have been in dire straits before too. I had a lot of things that I did not understand. I was blind to a lot of things. I was asking questions. Well, eventually I got to answering some of these questions. Eventually my eyes got open to a lot of things. So now I'm not trying to, tell you what to do or how you live your life. You're on your journey. If you don't want to listen to me, don't listen to me. If you don't want to hear me, don't hear me. I'm not a coach. I'm not trying to sell a masterclass on anything. I'm not trying to sell you a success story. I'm not trying to sell anything at all. I'm just, being me and just speaking into the void, and sometimes someone who can relate, shows up. Smoking is the dumbest addiction. An alcoholic at least feels drunk. A drug addict at least enjoys the high. Cigarette offer neither and change you the same, your health. Well, there is a lot to be said about nicotine, however, about the ingestion of nicotine. Nicotine is actually a compound that we as humans need. I know it sounds pretty wild. In case you didn't know, look it up. Nicotine is an amazing thing. It's not nicotine that causes addiction, however. It is the combustion products, and the tar and those kind of compounds that lead to addiction, and the stuff that they put into tobacco products nowadays. That's the really harmful stuff. But tobacco in itself, actually, they used to chew tobacco in the old days, and it has its benefits. I'm not trying to excuse smoking, and I'm not advertising smoking. All right, I'm just saying that there is some truth to nicotine, and it's pretty interesting. Having said that, I'm also trying to quit. Yep, that isn't true. That I don't see women as equals. Okay, but why do you? How is it not true? You just wrote in this chat yourself that they will see me like a king. What does it tell about you? In your own words. I'm just using logic here. Women are the source of life, plain and simple. Yes. Women are the only humans who can actually give birth. Look for a friend you can respect as an equal in a female first. The rest will follow. Yes, Dookie McDuke, exactly. Exactly. That isn't true that I'm looking to dominate. You misjudging me because I'm a Christian. No, not because you're a Christian. Even though I have to say that American Western Christianity, by and large, is extremely problematic. But it's not that because you are Christian, now I feel like I want to pick on you. No, I don't need this. I don't need to pick on anybody. I don't care, No, I'm just telling you that based off of what you are saying, it's your words. You said, they will see me as a king. I'm asking an open question. Then what is your perception of yourself? And what is your perception of women in relation to yourself? And then what do you really look for? Because I don't know. When you say I'm looking for a good woman, that doesn't tell me anything. What do you mean by good woman? If you're talking about an obedient, subservient woman who will cater to your needs, and no matter how you're going to word it, and it doesn't matter if you're Christian or you're not, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Protestant, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. What matters is, what is your intent? You know what I mean? That's not fair. And again, I don't mean to insult you. If anything, I'm trying to kind of, I don't know, maybe bring a different perspective. Both genders possess both masculine and feminine aspects, yes. It's the beautiful thing about it, about being human, yeah? Total misjudgment. I'm looking to settle down with a good woman and get a piece of land. Garden and chickens, not looking to dominate. That is just absolutely false. Well, again, I said what I said. You made a broad generalization. Let me put it this way. You made a broad generalization about American women without pointing out what is your problem with American women. And then you said that women in other countries would see you as a king. So based off of these two things, these are two nodes of information that make me think, okay, so if you're putting it this way, how do you think about it? It's a pretty broad generalization to just kind of chalk off women from your country, assuming you're American, right? So women from your home country just, that doesn't, they're all crazy. Something wrong with them. But then you're making the assumption that women in other countries are going to treat you as a king. You see, I'm just explaining how I perceive your words, something that you yourself, this is the information that you gave me. I'm going off of this information. I'm trying to get into your shoes and trying to see the world through your eyes to the best of my ability. And I don't understand. So what other you need to give me more to go off of, because what else? What other conclusions am I supposed to arrive to? That's what I'm saying. I say that calmly. I'm judging based on what you gave me, and that's all it is. I don't have anything else. I don't see your face. I don't see your body language. If I looked at your body language, I could have told you a lot more. If I saw your face, I could tell you a lot more. If I heard your voice actually saying this, I could have told you a lot more about your true intentions. If I knew the story of your life, I would have been able to tell you more. But I don't have all of these things. The only things that I have here is just lines in a chat. And based off of that, that's what it comes off as to me. Finland is known as the land of queens and wizards. So exactly the opposite of the usual Christian narrative. Well, Christianity originally comes from the Arab region anyway. The teaching of Yeshua, Christ, comes from Africa. Does anybody know about the Ethiopian church? That they actually did not modify their Bible, their scripture, at all. Whereas it's the Romans who adopted Christianity. I talked about this again on my previous live streams. This is a historic fact. The Romans were the first guys who figured out that they can use a teaching, a spiritual teaching, as a tool of political power. So they adopted Christianity. They've enforced it throughout the Roman Empire as the only approved state religion. All other belief systems were forbidden strictly under the penalty of death. This is why they genocided people and burned down the Library of Alexandria, the Great Library of Alexandria. Romans were ruthless about this, but they used religion as a tool of control. And so there were a lot of things that they didn't like about the original teaching of Jesus Christ, whatever his name was, Yeshua Christ, Jeshua Christ, whatever you want to call him. So they rewrote and redacted things to fit their political needs, to fit their agenda, which was imperial control. They were building an empire. They weren't pursuing equality and human rights and anything. No, that wasn't their goal. You see what I mean? And then it kept going from there for centuries upon centuries upon centuries upon centuries in Christianity. Things were just thrown out of the Bible. The next council comes together and they decide that we're going to write out women out of here. We don't need women here, Then it was about property rights because they needed to highlight that only men are entitled to land and women are not entitled to land. Then it was also about race because all of a sudden it's like it's only the rich white folks are somehow entitled to grabbing land all around the world. Remember the age of colonialism? So they needed to justify this. And you had to modify the Bible a little bit, and they even had the version of the Bible that they gave to enslaved populations in Africa had nothing to do with the original teaching of Jesus Christ. And there is actually a huge discrepancy between the Ethiopian Bible, for example, and the Bibles which were handed out to the enslaved populations in Africa. Look it up. It's harrowing. And I'm telling you, until recently, I didn't know a lot of this. It's freaking crazy. It's freakishly crazy. So nowadays, when people are saying, anybody is telling anything about Western Christianity is under attack and, it has to be protected from what? a tool of political control, which was set in motion centuries ago, has to be protected from what? From critical thought? From being dismantled? Because maybe it is part of the problem. Maybe it is part of why we are where we are today. Maybe that's in part why. That's not the only problem, right? Not the only reason, but maybe that's in part why. How did we get here? Why do we have ongoing wars? Why do we have ongoing genocides? Why do we have this huge problem with wealth disparity and assets and all of this? And it's not just about this, not just about the amount of money. It's also about the amount of opportunity for people and the treatment of different people based on race, gender, etc., and class. It's an ongoing problem. I'm not discovering new territory here. I mean, there are people far more intelligent than myself. We're talking about this for decades, writing books about this. But I'm just tying this together and showing that this is an ongoing theme. And Christianity is part of the Christianity of the civilized world. Let me carefully call it this, is part of the problem. It's part of the same equation because it has to do with the acquisition of power, with enforcing control and power over millions of people over multiple generations and making sure that this power doesn't go away. I'm sorry, Patrick. I kind of, got off here, on a long rant, but I know you're an open-minded person, so I know that you will listen to me. It's my perspective. It's my reading of history. I didn't want to read it this way, but I kind of have to. Because I can't neglect the existence of transatlantic slave trade. I can't neglect the Crusades, the destructive, harrowing, insane practices of the people who claimed to be civilized, going into other countries, like the British going into China several times. The rape and pillage and destruction of an ancient civilization that is far older than Britain. Don't mean to rag on Brits, but I'm just saying. It makes me wonder, who is the civilized one? And I have a lot of questions like this. And when I look at these things, these historic facts, I inevitably ask the question, what and where went wrong? And why we are all still on this track? And how can we get off this track? How can we change things in a positive, productive way? That's my mindset. Women are waking up. That's why single mothers. Yes. Look up the stats. As a late Gen Hexer, I completely agree with you. Jessica is here. Here I am. Gosh, I guess I gotta catch up on comments. I'm way behind. Dookie McDuke, then join a cult. Just kidding, bro. You claimed you're 19. Give it some time. It'll seem easier to understand. Oh, trans ideology. Okay, buddy. I went to trans church to learn to be trans. Yeah. I miss when transformers were just robots that battle each other. Beep, beep, blip, blip. Yep. McDuke, do you get all your jokes from Joe Rogan and Kill Tony? No, just the ones for you. Oh, so you do have original. I know. Helicoptering on the floor saying the N word is funny to you, Derry. Aye. Please stop. I might hurt a feeling. Oh no, our feelings are so hurt, stuck a nerve. Shit stamp. Gosh, holy cow. What's going on here? Toxicity? Can't we all just get along? Every alt-right dipshit ever. Oh wait. Holy cow. I guess there is a lot that I missed. There are other flavors of life out in the world. Go find yourself. Gosh, I don't understand who is talking to whom. Why do they all keep getting outed as gay? Guys, you had quite a conversation here. It's a bit of joke, then I think, okay. Must first lose our fear of a thing. Next comes the lack of importance in a thing. Yep, racism. Holy cow. Oof. It's one of the oldest versions left on the original text, yep. Oh, I guess it was the E93 key something. Rumors that the Ark of the Covenant is still hidden in that gun. Maybe. I don't know that. KJV had thousands of pages cut out of it and debated by the government floating around at the time, the British government or whatever the fuck. Yeah. King James Bible. King James was a raving misogynist. He was horribly bitter about women. Don't remember the historic details, but look it up. It's interesting. I'll have to refresh this in my memory. I can't remember everything, but I came across this. I read about this. And this guy, KJV is considered to be the standard. Written by a misogynist, literally. You can't make this shit up. There's a chapter or book of his close Apostle Mary that was hidden or left out. Yeah. Not the mother. Yeah, and the whole thing that somehow in this today version of Christianity, Mary is made into a hooker. Why? Well, I'm rhetorically asking the question, why? The real answer, of course, to that is because women were regarded in society, in a patriarchal society, as second class for the longest time. So, of course, the people who wanted to rule through patriarchy and they wanted to have an obedient society, they threw out the image of Mary as an equal to Jesus. They threw that out and they made her into a hooker. The whole thing, the whole modern Bible, I guess, it's such a weird conflation of, truths occasionally, universal truths, by the way, which are found in other spiritual teachings as well, but also a lot of this gibberish and a lot of this constructed stuff that was put there to serve someone's political agenda. You know, that king over there or this emperor over there decided that he wanted to go and have a land grab, or he wanted to get out these rebellious peoples over there who were standing in the way of his ambition. So he made something up, or he told, the church, like, we need to justify this and that. We need to justify that and that. And so they would assemble another council and they would translate something, or someone would have a divine epiphany and they would write in something else. And this is how we got here. You see what I mean? I'm exaggerating, of course. I'm, of course, exaggerating. However, I've only been listening to you so far and have just skimmed through that argument. Wild. Personally, I feel attract. What is attract? Guys, I've been on here for 2 hours. I have to wrap this up. It's getting dark. I have to get the cats into the house. And they're, before it gets dark. So I have to be going. This channel is Epic the Ladies, One Wise Woman. Thank you very much, Doki McDuck. And thank you, everybody who joined. That dude who was causing trouble, I guess, Jesse, Jess, you just tell me later what actually happened. I don't know. Because I missed all of that. I was responding to comments. I was going out on my rants, my regular rants. And it's easy for me to miss stuff. Even in the familiar Bible, Lilith, the woman who is essentially her equal, has been replaced by the story of the subordinate Eve. I prefer to be on an equal footing. Yeah, that's another thing. That the whole story of, the Eve and the apple and the serpent, all this, it's borrowed from earlier Mesopotamian mythology. And the message in the original myth is quite different. It's pretty damn interesting. I don't know if you know this. I just recently discovered it. It's freaking fascinating. When is the next one? The next one is going to be next Wednesday. And I will try to keep it consistent in that same time, about 7 o'clock, 7-ish, maybe a little earlier, a little later. How often? I will be here next Wednesday. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Patrick, I was very happy to see you finally here. I'm glad you're here, and it's been a pleasure. And you all have a wonderful time of the day, time of the evening, whatever. Stay positive. I mean, really. And see you next Wednesday. Ciao. Love you too, Patrick. Thank you. Until next time. Ciao.